your friendly and sometimes silly trauma recovery coach. In this video, I want to talk about something that's often misunderstood, and that's forgiveness. I'm going to tell you what it is and is not today. But it has a lot of power in it, believe it or not. And I was confused about forgiveness for a long time too, so that's why I kind of want to go over it with you. And we are going to go over what it is and is not. So anyway, let me get my stuff going here today. The first thing is, what is forgiveness? So I got my little notes, as you know I do. And according to the dictionary, forgiveness is a verb, it's an action. So it's to stop feeling angry or resentful towards someone for an offense, a flaw, or a mistake. That's the actual definition. So the next thing I want to go through is, what is the difference between forgiveness and forgetting? Now, we just went over what forgiveness is, and forgetting is a failure to remember. Well, that has nothing to do with forgiveness then. And I think a lot of times, especially how I grew up, we're taught to forgive and forget. That's not forgiveness. That's two different things. And there's been so much hurt to go with that. So I definitely want to get that out there. And the next thing is, what are some benefits? And this comes from the Mayo Clinic. And a lot of the benefits are, and this, they call it letting go of grudges or bitterness. And that's when you don't forgive someone and it gets to that point where you're all the time thinking about it and everything. So if you were to forgive, then you're going to have healthier relationships to begin with. And as human beings, we need relationships. You're going to have improved mental health. But we talk about that all the time here. When you've gone through a traumatic event, your mental health is so very important. So if you can improve it, that'll be great. Let's see what else. You have less anxiety, stress, and hostility. When you don't forgive, hostility does come up a lot. I'm sorry, I got a little cold. And then it will lower your blood pressure. Well, that's great. Physically, and we're going past the mental now. Also, you'll have fewer symptoms of depression, stronger immune system, improved heart health, improved self-esteem. And if you notice, everything that I just said about forgiveness, and if you can do it, helps you. It doesn't have to do with the other person. And that's the great power of forgiveness, is that it helps you, not the other person. And so the next thing I would like to go through, is it always necessary to forgive? Short answer, no. It's not necessary. I guess it would get to be necessary, and I say this a lot with people that I help and with my own children growing up, when it starts to get in your way, when it starts to keep you from growing as a person. That's when you really need to start looking at it. If it's not keeping you from growing and you can put it behind you, then do that. But when it starts getting in your way, when it starts manifesting itself physically, then you're going to want to take a good, long, hard look at it. The next thing is, how can you start the process of forgiving someone? Now, I'm going to go over this in a lot more in depth for one of my videos this week. But how can you start? The first thing you have to do, and this is something that was hard for me because you want to forget and put it behind you, okay? The first thing you have to do is acknowledge it. I know, that's a hard one. When you think about it, just think about that for a second. I'm going to acknowledge something that someone's done to me. I'm going to think about it in my head. I'm going to do that. Then all those emotions come up. And that's the thing that you're trying to get to not have. So, of course, acknowledging it is something that you don't want to do. So, but that's okay. You go ahead and acknowledge it. That's the very first step. And like I said, later on in the week, I can't remember which day, I am going to go through each of that, give you a step-by-step guide on how to do that. But that is the very first process of it. And the next one is, what if you find it difficult to forgive someone? Once again, this is your path, your journey. I know that sounds so cliche, but it is the truth. This is something that you have to be ready to do. That's it. It's no more harder than that. Once you're ready, then you might have to look at the hard things and do the hard things. But for right now, if you're not ready, it won't be true. It will be of no help to you whatsoever. And and hang on. And also, you have to give yourself some self-compassion, some self-forgiveness yourself, because a lot of times when we've been hurt by others, we tend to blame ourselves because we're being told, especially in a marriage, you're being told everything's 50-50. Well, that's not true. If one person is abusing the other person, I had a really good therapist one time put it like this: what if you were walking down the street, you're just walking down minding your own business, and all of a sudden someone hits you? What part of that is your fault? None of that was your fault. It happens in every kind of relationship. Just because you're in that relationship doesn't mean that's part of your fault. So keep that in mind too. And then, are there any risk associated with forgiving others? I would have to say, if I was thinking about, the only risk would be if you didn't do it right. Because when you forgive somebody, you're not forgetting, but when you forgive someone, you're releasing it. You're the one releasing it. So what if you released it and let's say you're still in that relationship and you don't put up boundaries? Then what you're doing when you do that, you don't give yourself time to heal. You don't put that boundary up. You don't have your ability to protect yourself. Then that will be the risk. But that's the risk of not doing it correctly. So we would go through some more this week. I know this is a tough subject for a lot of you, but that's okay. It needs to be talked about, and it needs to be talked about in a healthy way. Go out there and have a great week.